I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd catch his wife cheating and then turn around to plan some kind of revenge. Honestly, I thought I was easygoing, maybe even a little naive. But that all changed the night I found out the truth. It was after work, late December, and the house was unusually quiet when I got home. Usually, I'd hear her humming in the kitchen or see her sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. That night, silence hit me like a punch to the gut. I walked into our bedroom tired, expecting to see her getting ready for bed. Instead, I saw her laptop open on the bed, a bunch of emails pulled up. My eyes caught a thread from her work email, nothing special at first. But then I noticed the date stamps, a few messages with her boss, Greg, talking about tomorrow night, the dinner, the gift exchange. Nothing suspicious, I thought. But the subject line on one of the emails told a different story. Hotel reservation confirmation 15th. My stomach clenched. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling now. I clicked open the email. And there it was, hotel receipts tucked between her travel itineraries. The hotel was less than 10 miles from our house. I stared at the screen, feeling my face heat up with rage. I've always known that women can cheat, but I never imagined she'd lie so blatantly. She told me she was at a business dinner that night. I had no reason to doubt her. She'd been acting a little distant lately, but I chalked it up to work stress. Now I see the receipts and everything hits me all at once. The late nights, the vague excuses, her evasiveness when I asked about her schedule. She lied for weeks and I was clueless. I remember holding the phone in my hand, the blood rushing in my ears. I could feel my fists clenching, my nails digging into my palms. I couldn't even speak. All I could do was stare at the evidence, trying to process what it meant. She had betrayed me behind my back, and she was so good at hiding it, I almost believed her lies. I didn't want to wake her or blow up immediately. No, I needed to think this through. But the anger simmered beneath, my skin making every nerve on fire. I could feel my jaw tightening, my breathing shallow. I didn't cry, not then. Just sat there staring at those receipts, knowing I'd have to confront her sooner rather than later. It was no longer about trust. It was about what I was going to do about it. That night I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange numbness settle over me. I kept replaying her words, her lies. It was just a dinner, she had said, her voice so convincing. But I knew better now. I knew she'd been lying all along, and that realization gutted me. When I finally got up the nerve, I decided I wouldn't confront her right away. I needed a plan. I needed to see how deep this rabbit hole went. But one thing was clear, my marriage was over. I just didn't know it yet, not fully. For now, all I could do was sit there, staring at that email trail, feeling the cold weight of betrayal settle in my stomach. I didn't sleep much that night, but I knew one thing: everything was about to change. The next morning I woke up early, feeling like my head had been stuffed with cotton. My stomach was still twisted from the shock of last night's discovery. I kept going over the emails, the hotel receipts, her excuses, and everything suddenly felt like a lie. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it with some leverage, some power. I wasn't about to go in blind and get played again. I quietly got out of bed, trying to keep calm. I needed to see her phone, her private stuff, her messages, her emails. I knew it was risky, but I'd already crossed the line by snooping, so I might as well go all the way. I slipped her phone out of her purse while she was still asleep, my fingers trembling slightly. I unlocked it with her fingerprint, feeling like a thief in my own life. Her messages were she'd been texting Greg like they were lovers, calling him babe a few times. There was one recent message from her that made my stomach turn. "Can't wait to see you tonight. The hotel will be our little secret." I read it in disbelief. She'd been orchestrating this whole thing, lying to my face every step of the way. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped her phone. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a surge of pure rage. My mind raced, what to do next. I could just pack her bags and kick her out, but that wouldn't be enough. I wanted her to feel this, to understand what betrayal really meant. I remembered her telling me she loved me, how she'd never do anything to hurt me. That was a lie, plain and simple. I closed her phone, my jaw clenched so tight I felt the muscles tightening like steel wires. I decided I'd use this evidence to get her to come clean sooner rather than later. I needed her to understand that I knew everything. I waited until she was in the kitchen making coffee before I finally dropped the bomb. I threw her phone onto the counter and said, "I saw the emails, the receipts. Do you want to explain this?" She froze, her eyes wide. For a second I thought she might deny it or cry, but then her face hardened. "You didn't have to go." Snooping, she said, voice cold and defensive. "It's none of your business. Really, because this is my business," I shot back, feeling my blood boil. "You lied to me for weeks. You were at a hotel with your boss, not at some dinner. How long has this been going on?" She looked away, silent for a long moment. I caught the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but she masked it so fast I wasn't sure if I was imagining things. I stepped closer, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "Don't even try to deny it. I have the proof. Tell me, how long has this been going on?" She finally looked up, her face pale but with an arrogant glint I didn't recognize. "It's not what you think," she muttered. "It was one night. It meant nothing." "One night doesn't look like nothing from where I stand," I snapped. "You think you can lie and cheat and I'll just accept it. I deserve better than a wife who's been screwing her boss behind my back." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but I saw her trembling. "Whatever." She was about to say, I knew it wasn't going to be good. I felt my heart pounding hard in my chest, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see how much she'd hurt me, but I stayed still, waiting for her to say something. She finally whispered, "It was just a mistake. I was lost and I didn't know how to tell you." That was the last straw. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "A mistake you kept secret for weeks. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. I need some time to think about what I'm going to do next." She looked at me with desperation, trying to hold back tears. "Please don't do this. We can fix it. I swear it's over now." I felt the cold weight of her words, but I knew better. She'd been lying and hiding for too long. I needed to get out, clear my head, and come up with a plan. I couldn't stay under the same roof with her, not after this. I needed to be the one in control of what happened. Next, I left the kitchen quietly, my heart heavy with betrayal, knowing this was just the beginning of a very different kind of game. By late afternoon, I was simmering with a mix of fury and clarity. I'd seen enough, heard enough. The evidence was all there, her texts, her emails, her hotel receipts. The only thing left was to figure out how to turn this into something she couldn't ignore. I wasn't going to just pack my bags and walk away quietly, not after all this. No, she'd pushed me too far, and I had a plan forming in my head that would hit her where it hurt. I spent the afternoon researching. Not just about her, but about her boss, Greg. I needed to understand his world, his routines, his weaknesses. I knew I couldn't confront her again until I had a solid plan. Revenge, I figured, isn't just about hurting someone. It's about making them feel the way you did when you discovered the truth. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and maybe a little afraid. I remembered her saying Greg was married too, which complicates things. But I wasn't interested in playing the moral high ground. I just wanted her to see what it felt like to be played, to be lied to so blatantly. I started with small steps, hacking into her email, digging through her social media, anything I could find to understand her patterns, her contacts, her habits. I wasn't proud of this, but I knew I needed to know more. By evening, I had a plan. It was simple but effective. I'd set up a fake email account, one that looked just real enough to catch her attention. I'd use it to message Greg, pretending to be someone else, an anonymous admirer maybe, or someone who knew about the affair. I'd bait him, see if he took the bait, and if he did, I'd have my proof. Then I'd confront her with everything. I sat on the couch, the room dark except for the glow of my laptop. My hands were numb, and I felt a strange mix of cold satisfaction and dread. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, something to steady my nerves. It was going to be a long night. I started typing the message. Simple, vague, but enough to spark curiosity. "Hey, I saw your name on a hotel bill. Interesting. Company care to explain?" I hesitated before hitting send. Once I did, the game was on. The night dragged on. Around midnight, I got a reply. It was subtle, but I caught the hint of nervousness in the tone. "Who is this? How do you know about the hotel?" The message read. I felt a rush of adrenaline. My plan was working. I responded casually, trying to sound convincing. "Just someone who knows what's going on. I think you should be careful what you say next." The reply came faster this time. "Look, I don't know what you want, but I'm not interested in drama. Leave me alone." That was the point I'd been waiting for. I knew I had him. I would keep this up, see how far I could push him, and then use everything I had against her. I felt a strange calm washing over me. I'd turned the tables, and I was finally in control of the situation. As I shut my laptop and prepared to go to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to change everything. My wife's lies had opened a door I wasn't sure I wanted to walk through, but now that I was on this path, there was no turning back. I was ready to confront her again, this time with proof and leverage. Whatever came next, I knew I wouldn't be the one to fall. The next morning, I woke up feeling different. The adrenaline from last night's game still buzzed in my veins. I knew I'd pushed the right buttons, and Greg's nervous replies confirmed I had some leverage. I was ready to strike back, but I had to do it carefully. I needed her to see I wasn't backing down. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about making her understand she'd crossed a line she couldn't erase. I spent the morning dialing in my plan. I figured I'd keep Greg's contact active, keep him guessing, but I also needed to escalate. I wanted her to realize I wasn't just going to roll over. I'd been patient, but now it was time to force her to face the consequences of her lies. I decided to make her think I was watching her every move. I installed a keylogger on her laptop the night before, so I could see if she was trying to cover her tracks or contact him again. I knew it was extreme, but I didn't care. I had to be sure she was still hiding something. Later in the day, she was acting nervously. I caught her sneaking glances at her phone continually, trying to hide the screen. I smirked inwardly. My plan was working. I told her I needed to go out for a while and left the house, pretending to run errands. Once I was gone, I checked the email account I set up. Sure enough, there were more messages, more exchanges with Greg trying to downplay everything, but the signs of guilt were there. I felt a strange satisfaction. Seeing her squirm, knowing I was one step ahead, this was exactly what I needed. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. She was the one who'd messed up, and I was going to make her pay. When I came back, she was waiting in the living room, trying to act normal, but her hands trembled slightly when she saw me. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "We need to talk about everything." She swallowed hard and nodded. "What do you want?" "I want the truth," I said coldly. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, then blurted, "Since the company party in December. It was an impulse, I swear, it meant nothing." I scoffed. "An impulse that lasted weeks, and you lied about being at a business dinner every time I asked. How stupid do you think I am?" Her face flushed and she looked down, but I saw the flicker of regret or maybe guilt deep in her eyes. I knew I had her cornered now. "Here, what's going to happen?" I continued, voice steady but angry. "You're going to end things with Greg today. I want all of your messages, all of your contacts, everything. Because if I find out you're lying again, it's over, and I mean over." She looked like she was about to argue, but I cut her off. "Don't bother, I've seen enough. You lied to me, you betrayed me, and I won't stand for it anymore." The room fell silent for a moment, thick with tension. Then she nodded quietly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Okay, I'll do it." I didn't feel any relief quite. Yet I knew this was just the beginning. She'd try to hide more, lie again. But I'd be waiting, watching her every move, ready to expose her fully. As she left to end things with Greg, I sat on the couch, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. It was ugly, but I knew I was finally taking control. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a price. I wondered how she'd react when she realized I wasn't going to forgive her that easily. But I wasn't interested in forgiveness anymore. I wanted her to feel the pain of betrayal, and I was just getting started. A few hours later, she came back looking like she'd been run over by a truck. Her eyes were red and her face was streaked with tears. She handed me her phone, her hands trembling, and choked out, "It's all gone. I deleted everything, I swear." I looked at her, feeling a cold surge of satisfaction mixed with disgust. "You think deleting messages erases what you did? That doesn't make it go away. I've got backups, I've got everything I need." I reached for her phone and unlocked it, my fingers firm and decisive. I had prepared for this moment, and I wasn't letting her get away with faking her way out of it. "Look, I said, voice low and steady. You lied for weeks. I want you to understand how deep this betrayal goes. I'm not just angry, I'm hurt, and I don't see a way back from this. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Please don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake. It was just one night, I swear. Was it? I interrupted sharply. Do you know how many nights I wasn't sure if you were lying, or if you were with him? I paused, feeling my chest tight. You thought you could hide this forever, but I've got evidence and I'm going to use it. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots from the anonymous email account. Greg's messages, the hotel receipts, the texts she'd sent him, every detail laid bare. Her face went pale and she looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came. I'm done, I said, voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. You've betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. I can't stay married to someone I don't trust. You need to leave today, pack your things and go. She looked like she was about to argue, to beg for forgiveness, but I held up my hand to stop her. No, I've made up my mind. This is over. I felt the sharp sting of defeat in her eyes, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. Finally, I was taking control of this mess. She grabbed her purse, tears spilling over her cheeks, and headed for the door. I watched her go, feeling hollow but resolute. I thought about all the moments I'd wasted, the signs I'd missed, and how stupid I'd been to trust her blindly. But now I was free, or at least I was trying to be. Before she left, she looked back at me, her voice breaking. I'm sorry, I really am. For a second I hesitated, but then I realized sorry wasn't enough. Not anymore. I just nodded and closed the door behind her. Watching her walk out, I felt the cold weight of betrayal settle deep in my chest. House suddenly felt emptier than ever. As I sat alone in the silence, I knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself. I'd been stupid to believe in her, but I wasn't going to let her define what came next. Not anymore. I was done with her lies, her betrayal, her fake smiles, and I was finally ready to start rebuilding. The pain was raw, but deep down I knew I'd survive this. The house was silent now, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city outside. I sat on the couch, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness knotting in my stomach. The chaos of the past few days had finally settled into a heavy, oppressive calm. I stared at the door she had just walked out of, the echo of her footsteps still ringing in my ears. I thought about everything. The lies, the betrayal, the plan I meticulously crafted to turn her own deceit against her. Honestly, I'd never felt so alive and so dead at the same time. Part of me wanted to run after her, to scream, to demand answers. But I knew that was pointless. She made her choice, and I had made mine. I got up slowly and looked around at the apartment that now seemed so different, so hollow. My hands were still slightly trembling, but the fury had cooled into a dull ache. I grabbed the pile of her clothes from the chair and started packing them into a box. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed to reclaim some semblance of control. As I folded her sweater, the one she always wore when she was anxious, I remembered the times she'd told me she loved me, how she'd promised things would be different. I wanted to scream at the memory, but instead I just felt numb. That love was a lie, a carefully constructed illusion I'd bought into for too long. The final act was simple but decisive. I went to the filing cabinet and pulled out the paperwork for the house, the bank accounts, and the shared bills. I sat down at the table, took a deep breath, and began sorting through the documents. I knew I had to cut ties completely. No more looking back, no more pretending I was okay with her betrayal. I reached into my pocket and took out the keys to her car, the one she used to sneak around. I dropped them onto the table, feeling a strange sense of closure. I grabbed my phone, dialed the number of a lawyer I'd found earlier that day, and scheduled a meeting. It was time to officially end everything, marriage, shared life, or whatever we'd had. While I waited for the lawyer, I looked around the apartment, trying to memorize the layout, the little things that had once made me happy. Now they only reminded me of what I'd lost. I clenched my fists, feeling the tightness in my chest. I'd been a fool to trust her, but I was done being the victim. When the lawyer arrived, I handed over the paperwork, explaining everything. I felt a strange sense of relief as the legal process began unfolding. I was taking back control, step by step, piece by piece. The betrayal had shattered my world, but I refused to let it destroy me completely. As I watched her name come off the deed of the house and my name go back to being the sole owner, I realized something fundamental. Revenge wasn't just about hurting her. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about proving I was stronger than her lies and her betrayal. That night I sat alone in the dark, the silence finally settling in. I poured myself a drink not to drown the pain but to toast what was left of my dignity. I knew I'd be okay, worse things had happened, and I'd survived. I'd rebuild slowly and carefully on my terms. The lesson was clear: trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But life keeps moving, and so must I. I handed over the keys, closed the chapter, and looked toward a future where I was no longer a victim. It was time to start over, and I was ready.